The entertainment industry spent years building an invisible wall of absolute protection around its elite, convincing the public that certain names were simply too powerful, too wealthy, or too fragile to ever be touched. But on a single night, live across international airwaves, that entire illusion was utterly dismantled. When a seasoned icon steps onto a live stage with nothing left to lose, decades of built-up industry politics can vanish in a matter of seconds. This wasn't just a standard comedy set. It was a highly calculated, scorched-earth campaign that systematically targeted Hollywood royalty, tech billionaires, and global political figures, proving that absolute wealth cannot buy immunity from absolute ridicule. The reckoning began precisely where the world's collective obsession had left off, addressing a moment of public violence that had been frozen in media history for months. For over a year, the public watched as an unprecedented physical assault on live television was analyzed from every conceivable angle, with most observers walking on eggshells around the perpetrators. Yet, when the silence was finally broken, it didn't come in the form of a polished public relations statement or a tearful sit-down interview. The retaliation arrived like a shockwave, instantly flipping the narrative of victimhood that the media had spent months constructing. The world was reminded that while physical impact leaves a temporary mark, a perfectly executed verbal counterstrike can permanently alter a legacy. What made the response so devastating wasn't just the blunt acknowledgement of the event, but the precise exposure of the household dynamics driving it. For years, the public had been subjected to deeply uncomfortable, highly publicized disclosures broadcast straight from the couple's own digital platforms. The true irony of the entire saga was exposed. The target didn't need to dig up any hidden secrets or reveal anyone's dirty laundry, because the couple had already enthusiastically uploaded their own marital dysfunction to the internet for global consumption. The industry watched in absolute disbelief as a legendary screen icon was reframed not as a dominant figure, but as a man suffering publicly from wounds inflicted entirely within his own home, making his subsequent outburst on the world stage look less like a defense of honor and more like complete, unchecked desperation. The takedown rapidly evolved from a personal grievance into a sweeping critique of a deeply flawed industry culture. The narrative laid bare how the entire entertainment landscape had quietly ridiculed the situation behind closed doors, while publicly maintaining a facade of polite distance. By listing out how every major daytime talk show, rap icon, and late-night panel had privately mocked the couple's highly unusual public confessions, the monologue stripped away the illusion of Hollywood solidarity. It concluded with a cold, definitive reminder of cultural boundaries and basic upbringing, leaving an elite audience sitting in stunned silence as they realized that the ultimate consequence of their unchecked public oversharing was total, irreversible public destruction. But that initial destruction was merely a warm-up for a much wider, far more unpredictable assault that caught the entire industry completely off guard. In the middle of an intense breakdown of major national events, a sudden, brutal stray bullet was fired directly at Jonah Hill, a figure who had absolutely nothing to do with the primary discussion. The commentary took a sharp, aggressive turn, analyzing how public sympathy is highly transactional in modern media, dictated almost entirely by physical appearance. The argument was put forth that if certain figures looked like standard, everyday individuals rather than polished Hollywood archetypes, public tolerance for their complex personal dramas would instantly evaporate. It was a rapid, jarring reminder that in this arena, no one was considered safe, and no past professional achievements could shield someone from becoming a sudden metric for public ridicule. The momentum shifted instantly from cinematic icons to the highly volatile world of combat sports, focusing on the single most controversial athletic spectacle of recent memory. The digital age has allowed internet personalities to manipulate traditional industries for massive financial gain, a trend that reached its absolute peak when a 27-year-old digital creator stepped into a professional ring to face a 58-year-old global athletic legend. The sheer absurdity of the matchup was treated not as a triumph of modern promotion, but as an absolute localized disgrace to the sport itself. The commentary captured a deep, visceral animosity, a specific type of resentment described as a deep, systemic hatred akin to a landlord's absolute disdain for a tenant, arguing that the entire event was a grotesque exploitation of a beloved icon's twilight years. The critique deepened, framing the victory not as a display of athletic prowess, but a severe symptom of modern cultural decline. The audience was forced to confront the harsh reality of a young man in his absolute physical prime actively engineering a spectacle that involved landing heavy strikes on a man who legally qualified for senior citizen benefits. The narrative built a compounding sense of disgust, moving past the immediate financial success of the pay-per-view numbers to question the long-term trajectory of these digital spectacles. The sequence ended on a chilling, highly provocative open loop, asking the audience to consider just how far this trend would go, jokingly speculating whether revered elderly cultural institutions like Morgan Freeman would be the next targets lined up for a digital payout. Before the crowd could even process the implications of that sporting disgrace, the narrative scaled up to the absolute highest echelons of global authority, taking direct aim at the changing of the guard in the Oval Office. The political landscape had just witnessed a historic, entirely unprecedented resurrection, with Donald Trump surviving multiple close-range assassination attempts, securing a dominant victory by capturing the popular vote, and being named Time's Man of the Year. Rather than leaning into standard political talking points, the commentary bypassed traditional partisan alignment altogether, using the moment to launch a devastating historical critique against the entire institution of the presidency, reminding the world that the highest office in the land has historically attracted some of the most deeply flawed individuals in human history. The historical takedown was relentless, dragging past leaders into the light to prove that modern political chaos is nothing new. By invoking sharp, uncomfortable historical realities about early American leaders arriving at their inaugurations accompanied by enslaved individuals, the narrative created a stark, jarring contrast with modern political scandals. The critique then took a sharp, unexpected pivot into the late to post-90s era, dropping a brutal, direct reference to Bill Clinton that completely subverted the audience's expectations of a standard historical lecture. It was a masterclass in pacing, utilizing high-stakes political realities to set up a sequence of rapid-fire punchlines that left both sides of the political aisle completely defenseless. The boundary-pushing commentary did not slow down. Instead, it rapidly expanded its borders to look at the highly controversial intersection of global wealth, legal scandals, and shifting immigration policies. The narrative shifted instantly to the impending, highly publicized release of the Menendez brothers, combining it with the perpetual media circus surrounding Jennifer Lopez's complex relationship history. The commentary wove in these separate pop culture phenomena into a singular, aggressive narrative about borders and national status, demonstrating how quickly the media apparatus can turn serious legal updates into a fast-paced, high-retention spectacle that leaves the audience completely breathless. This led directly into an analysis of the terrifyingly powerful alliance developing between the federal government and the world's wealthiest individuals. The focus landed squarely on the modern partnership between the state and Elon Musk, who was framed not merely as a tech entrepreneur, but as the most influential figure of the modern era. The narrative took a deeply personal, highly unusual turn, mocking the billionaire's extensive family tree before pivoting to international scale. The commentary built a dark, cinematic picture of futuristic border enforcement, suggesting that the ultimate endpoint of extreme private wealth was the creation of interstellar maximum security systems designed to handle global migration patterns with absolute, terrifying efficiency. With the tech elite thoroughly targeted, the narrative crossed the Atlantic to dismantle one of the most heavily protected institutions in the world, the British royal family. The global media had spent years treating the ongoing public feud involving Meghan Markle as a deeply tragic, high-stakes battle against centuries-old institutional prejudice. But when viewed through an unfiltered lens, the entire international drama was stripped of its grand historical weight and reduced to something far more relatable, yet incredibly petty. The narrative completely rejected the solemn media consensus, reframing the entire global controversy as a standard, highly dramatic dispute between an individual and their intensely annoying wealthy in-laws. The critique focused intensely on specific, highly publicized interviews where complaints were made regarding family discussions about future children's skin tones. Rather than approaching the topic with standard corporate sensitivity, the commentary normalized the situation by pointing out that intense, highly specific curiosity regarding familial traits is a universal human trait across diverse communities, rather than a uniquely malicious institutional trait. The narrative drove home a harsh, undeniable point about the sheer absurdity of public complaints from an individual who had successfully married into the most affluent, secure family dynasty on the planet, reminding viewers that absolute financial security instantly changes the nature of personal struggle. The narrative arc then stabilized its target at the absolute